Hello and welcome to Liverpool Transfer Daily. That's the morning stream in the transfer market. So we're looking more closely at the various transfer rumours, various confirmed transfer dealings as it may be. And we have one potentially of them today with whispers in multiple corners that Trent Kone Doherty, young Derry City talent, has finally completed his move to Liverpool. Not confirmed by the club yet or anything like that, but it's been sort of murmuring on in the background for a while now, hasn't it, Ben? And it looks like that one might finally be over the line.
Yeah, certainly. I think first reports came out around March. By then, it seemed like he had already agreed a deal, and I think it's just about waiting for him to turn 16, so he can actually join the club officially, which I think happens next month. I think this latest report has come from his manager, or former manager now, who said he will be joining Liverpool. Basically, confirmed the deal, which was not really a secret to anyone who was involved in reporting the transfer in the first place. It seems like it's been set in stone for some time now.
Yeah, certainly that would be an exciting one, and it seems to be following a kind of early pattern under Julian Ward, doesn't it? We've got the Fabio Carvalho deal, which by all accounts he led on in January when he was sort of taking over that process from Michael Edwards. He's obviously very young, still a teenager. We've got Kone Doherty, we've got Ben Doak has been mentioned as well. Calvin Ramsey, and then if you want to go back a little bit further, obviously there's Harvey Elliott. But certainly within the last couple of seasons, really, there seems to have been a major push on this sort of really youth level recruitment at Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, Cade Gordon and Bobby Clark as well. Last year, one arrived in January and the other in the summer. So yeah, there's a lot of precedence there for British youngsters coming in, homegrown talent in particular. I mean, I know Carvalho is a Portuguese under-21 international, but he does qualify as a homegrown player. So yeah, I think that's important in the Brexit climate and everything else that's happening around, needing more homegrown players in the Premier League, given Liverpool squad and some of the homegrown players who are getting to the end of their careers, maybe the likes of Milner, potentially Henderson, and so on. And obviously Joe Gomez's future is a little bit uncertain, as well as Oxlade-Chamberlain. So it does feel like Liverpool do need that fresh blood and that injection of youth from the British Isles. And I think in terms of Ben Doak and Calvin Ramsey, they're both very exciting transfers. And same with Trent Kone Doherty. He's someone who's he's already highly regarded at Derry. I think he's been around the first team squad at such a young age, which just shows you how much of a talent he is. And he stood out when Ireland have played at international level as well. And it's just going to be very interesting how he's integrated into the academy, because there's obviously loads of talented wingers in his position. Ben Doak is one, for example, but Bobby Clark is also another I mentioned, and Cade Gordon as well. I think he's still eligible to play at under 18 level next season. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, another Trent with a double-barreled surname. Potentially not the best news for us on the streams when we're trying to say the names, but definitely good news. And you mentioned the homegrown thing there. There's maybe even still a little bit of misconceptions around that, because like you were saying with Fabio Carvalho, the fact that he's Portuguese, entirely irrelevant. It's all about training with an English club for 3 years, I believe, prior to their 21st birthday. Spurs will know all about it because they have Eric Dyer, who doesn't qualify for that because it doesn't matter that he's English. He was off training in Portugal at the time. So yeah, it's something that maybe not all the supporters had their head around as much, but Liverpool certainly had their head screwed on in that regard. And yeah, as you say, you can see it in the recruitment recently. Exciting too that this next crop of talent will be brought through by Jurgen Klopp, of course. Yeah, that I think maybe is potentially one of the biggest benefits of that extension through to 2026 is that Klopp has sort of become the guardian of this next generation. Of course, he still would have had the best interests of the club in mind had he thought he was leaving earlier. But the fact that this will be his next great team, I suppose, really makes that sort of motivation to bed in that talent even more tangible for him.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see. He's dealt with the young players well. Obviously, Trent and Curtis Jones are the biggest examples of young players he's brought through from the academy, but Harvey Elliott as well. It didn't necessarily come from Liverpool's academy, but he's someone who he worked closely with, and he always has an eye for a talent. I think maybe at Borussia Dortmund, because the situation sort of forced him into using more of the academy players, he was better at doing that. But at Liverpool as well, there's always a pathway. Obviously, for these young players, they're coming into Liverpool when the attack is sort of already undergoing a new metamorphosis necessarily, with Sadio Mane already leaving, Divock Origi going, Takumi Minamino, and there seems to be a new sort of evolution with Darwin Núñez, who's a number 9, more traditional number 9 compared to Mane and Firmino, and obviously the future of the latter, Firmino, is uncertain as well, and Mohamed Salah, that's been very publicized in the media that his future is up in the air. Who knows what's going to happen there? And these youngsters, Liverpool will hope, could potentially be the ones to take on the baton from the old guard. And I think they're coming in at a time when, obviously, next season they wouldn't be necessarily expecting first team opportunities, but further down the line, if some of these players leave, then there could be an opportunity for them opening up.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive that Klopp's managed to bed any of this youth talent in and around the first team. Like you say, when that starting 11 is so strong, of course, we're looking at a Liverpool team that's won everything on offer to them now after the domestic double was completed last season. So it's not the easiest team in the world for young players to get chances in. Like you say, very different situation to when Klopp was at Dortmund. But yeah, he's made that something of a priority, and that's a selling point in the transfer market too. But speaking of the transfer market, it's not all just young players who've been targeted. And the most recent reports, most recent rumours are linking Liverpool with another return to Portugal, where they signed Núñez from, where they signed Diaz from, and specifically Diaz's old club Porto with Otavio. What do you make of those rumours?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think from my personal opinion, I think it's pretty unlikely because Liverpool have made it sort of clear that they're willing to wait until 2023 to sign a midfielder. So I don't really expect Liverpool, unless something unexpected happens, to do anything. And I think they're happy to wait for Jude Bellingham. But Otavio is an interesting player. He certainly would suit Liverpool in terms of his pressures, per 90, his energy, and his work rate, and he's fairly versatile as well, and creative too. I think when he came to Anfield with Porto, or when Liverpool travelled to Porto in the Champions League last season, he averaged the highest pressures per 90 out of any Porto player. So that tells you an indication that he's probably prepared for the gegenpress at Liverpool. But I think at the same time, he is 27, and Porto are demanding a lot of money for him. So I don't really see how, when he would probably be just a backup midfield. I don't really see how FSG would be willing to spend the sort of figures that are being touted around for him, when all I see him as is potentially just a little bit of an upgrade on Oxlade-Chamberlain. But if that's all he can do, then you'd rather just keep Chamberlain and not spend hefty money in the market and just save that up for someone better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm keeping an eye on the comments, and there's lots of talk about Bellingham and about what we do in the intervening year, if indeed it is the plan to go for Bellingham in 2023. And I think that will define whether or not Liverpool do any more business, is how they view this kind of interim year. And I think it's important, like you say, to remember the players already at Klopp's disposal. For the sake of a year, are they going to go out and spend big on someone else, or are they going to maybe ask someone like Oxlade-Chamberlain to step up? Of course, we can't ignore the fact that James Milner has signed a 1-year extension. Of course, you don't want him to be playing every week. He's 36 now, but it's a case of, if there are big plans for next summer, nothing confirmed yet there, but there's heavily reported that Bellingham will be targeted. Then Liverpool aren't necessarily going to want to, like you say, make a big splash in the transfer market. I suppose the one benefit that Otavio has going for him that we haven't touched upon is his versatility. I suppose the age becomes less of a factor if you're saying, okay, he's the long-term Milner heir, if you like, the kind of versatility hatchet man who can slot in anywhere. He's played a whole variety of positions for Porto over the years. But it would be an odd one if that kind of transfer was one that Liverpool spent big on. Do you think if they are looking for an heir to that position, it'll probably be another kind of Milner-esque free transfer?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned his versatility, but I think he's versatile in a different sense to Milner, because he plays further up the field, whereas Milner was versatile in the sense that he could drop back and cover the fullback positions and even the holding midfielder. I'm not sure Otavio is quite capable of that same sort of role as Milner in the Liverpool squad. I think you'd need a slightly different profile, but then again, Liverpool do have a backup at right back and at left back now who are both, well, we don't know with Ramsey yet, but the expectation is that he's going to be fairly competent in that position. So yeah, I do think there's probably better profiles out there to replace Milner than Otavio.
Yeah, I think that's probably where Liverpool will end up coming down as well. But it's another interesting link. Portugal again. Maybe we'll see more of those links in the future. Julian Ward has lots of links in the country. Clearly likes it. One to keep an eye on. But like you say, maybe Otavio himself, not the likeliest one. But with Trent Kone Doherty potentially in the bag, it's certainly still an exciting time to be following Liverpool in the transfer market. It's not all necessarily as done and dusted as we thought it might have been. There's still things to keep an eye on. Thank you very much for joining us today. We'll be back again tomorrow and every weekday looking at the freshest Liverpool transfer rumours and anything else going on around the club. Meanwhile, be sure to keep an eye on Blood Red channel and Liverpool.com, where we'll have our written content. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll be back soon.